this session is about the progress on developing Inspire, implementing Inspire from the different angles. So we will have a presentation about Inspire evolution of the environmental key. And then my colleague from Eurostat will present the step toward implementation of the directive. And finally, we will report about all technical development in terms of data specification, network services, and the job portal that my colleague from Jersey. So I am pleased to leave the floor to Hugo de Groef, that was chairing the previous section, so I don't need to introduce him, that will present Inspire evolution of the environmental key. Please, Hugo.
So welcome back, everybody, for this next part of the plenary session. I have the pleasure and the honor to present some elements of the environmental acquis, which basically means the entire suite of legal acts, case law, etc., which are part of our European Union legislation related to the environment, and how some of these newer elements of the acquis require a powerful European spatial data infrastructure to be in place. Little patience. Very well. I suppose we will have to do it this way. Now, you've already been introduced to these, call it Inspire policy foundations. And actually, at the time that the 6th Environmental Action Programme was conceived, also the seed for Inspire was planted. Inspire, its entire scope, was developed over something like 2 to 3 years, up to 2005, when the Commission adopted the proposal. This was done by a large group of experts from the member states to define the different components, and with regard to the environmental data scope, the leadership of the European Environment Agency. Now, when we look at the 4 priorities of the Environmental Action Programme, which also contained 7 thematic strategies, which are underpinned by a whole suite of different types of actions, some of them, most of them, legal, and also the aspects in the action programme related to the mitigation of natural and man-made hazards leading possibly to disasters, we rapidly came to the conclusion that a European spatial data infrastructure was needed, especially because the 6th EAP also puts a very heavy focus on knowledge-based policy making and assessment. Now, this environmental acquis is extremely large in scope. Today, it comprises over 200 legal acts. It also includes actually all the international agreements. And it covers, of course, a wide range of themes. Information requirements under the environmental acquis. Some of them have been already addressed by the previous speakers, so I'm not going to go into detail. On the one hand, we need, of course, to conduct these integrated assessments. We need this information to assess the effectiveness of our policies. Also important, as a core task of the European Commission, is the availability of data and information to check the actual compliance with the environmental acquis. And finally, and probably most importantly, policy implementation. And policy implementation is actually what is being done in the member states and in the regions. And this, obviously, is where the greatest benefit of Inspire lie today. Now, what data sources did we have available for us? In the first place, there are a number of reporting obligations under the environmental acquis. Let's call it obligation-based reporting on the state of the environment, air quality, water quality, and so on. This data is integrated and is part of our input into an indicator process, which we then use for these assessments. But we don't have enough data for various reasons. It can be outdated, it's not timely enough. The nature of the problems may have changed since legislation was adopted, and so on. So for that purpose, also as one of the core tasks of the European Environment Agency, this subset of information and data is complemented by data through other channels from other sources, more relevant and demand-driven. Now a little word on these indicators. One suite of indicators are the so-called Sustainable Development set of indicators. They have been elaborated by a large group of experts. It's like a pyramid of indicators covering various aspects of sustainable development by our colleagues in Eurostat. Now, if we just take one of the small subsets, management of natural resources indicators, what is interesting in this slide are actually all the lines that you see, the text which is in italic. The experts have identified those as indicators. However, we don't have data that meets the minimum criteria for developing, for actually having this indicator. So that's a substantial problem, because as we said before, our policies are assessed also on the basis of these indicators, which could be very simple graphs like this one. Now the Eurostat approach, of course, is to use all indicator initiatives. They are working very closely together, joint questionnaires and others with the OECD. And there is a very close collaboration, of course, with our European Environment Agency, who also has, as it was already pointed out, its core set of indicators, which are categorized according to the different stages of the DIPSIR analytical model. So here we have those 37 indicators. Now when you look at them, you immediately realize that there's an enormous amount, a wide variety of data needed to underpin those from a wide variety of sources. Do we actually have those? And what is the role of Inspire in providing this information underpinning data? I just recall here the data scope of Inspire very rapidly, because of course you all know them by heart by now. But why are they important? Inspire, of course, is there also to address problems of transboundary nature, of which we are confronted more and more today. And the first one, to which I would like to draw your attention, are the natural hazards and the disasters related to floods. They do have an enormous impact, as unfortunately we had to experience again, also in this beautiful area, south of France has suffered. Now, how is it possible that we do not have sufficiently efficient early warning systems? Why can't we predict those risks and run scenarios to already prepare our flood defense networks more efficiently?